Boys, another podcast, episode 52.
52. I
Where's-
see a year's worth of reps in less than a year. I think it's like week 49 or 48, I think.
Yeah, because I've done some interviews and stuff, so
Yeah.
that's some extra episodes. So we're nearly at a year, nearly there.
Crazy, man. And I haven't missed a week.
We have not missed a week, only over Christmas that once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Which is
we
fair.
we chose to miss that week. It wasn't
Yeah,
like other than that, we've never missed an episode.
No,
And we
that was
really
an
missed each
intended
other during that
sabbatical.
Been awesome.
Uh,
Hey, it just shows you, man, just to think, imagine we didn't make this decision to just start it and do it 50 weeks ago.
yeah, it's been great. I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. And we've got so much great feedback every single week. People reach out to us and just tell us how much it's changed them and how much it's helped them, especially first timers. So
Yeah.
we love it. We love to hear
Oh, we
that stuff.
do. And equally, I went to MT's on Friday night with one of our other mates, James, and then he came. MT was busy working, and we went upstairs. And he's like, "Oh yeah, this is where he sits for the potty." This is where he just. By the way, did you find your spatula?
I found my spatula. You hit it. I found it. You know how I knew where you hit
The
it?
camera, where I put the camera angle.
Yes, because the story that you
Yeah.
posted
I
about
know. I didn't want to make it hard for you to find. Like,
it. But I woke up in the morning, cracked my eggs in the pan.
yeah,
Like, hang on, where the fuck's my spatula?
yeah.
Found it.
Talk about invading personal space. Like, we went through his drawers to like we were digging, right? Like,
Yeah.
gone are the days of having some
Did you
privacy.
see I had other spatulas in there?
You had like 3 or 4 great
I got
ones.
brand new ones. I
You
got
got fucking awesome ones, but you used the taped up one.
makes a
Hey.
difference.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, man.
Scotty, over the weekend we didn't see you at the show, but we saw you in your story that you're on a plane, and MG and I went up to each other like, Scotty's on a plane today. Did he tell us this? I feel bad for
No.
not knowing why he's on a plane.
Yeah, I had to duck up to Brisbane quickly and then back. So it was very short,
Okay.
just for some family stuff. But I'm back.
Awesome. Good.
But Scotty's wife was
I
the
brought my rice
replacement at the show.
crackers.
Equally, Jen was the replacement at the show, man. It was me, Trimboli, and Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did say she saw you guys, and you guys were like, "Where the fuck was he?" And
Yeah, where did he go?
she said to him, "She's like, honestly, I can't keep up with him."
Yeah, that's it. Who knows?
But we had the show on the weekend, All Female Classic, ICN, Victoria. Pretty much the last show for the season.
Yeah.
I think there's one this weekend. INBA Nationals. I know that because someone that listens to the podcast, Leah, she competed at NBA. She looked absolutely amazing. We spoke about her. She's doing nationals this weekend, so all the best to her. But yeah, it was a great show, All Female Classic on the weekend. Not one of their biggest shows, but still super competitive. And we'll go through the lineups now. We'll do a quick review of it because there was a lot of competitors that had competed previously in the season, had done really, really well at other shows. So even though it was a smaller show, it was pretty competitive. So let's get into it. Let's go. Let me share this screen here. And let's go onto the ICN Facebook page. I will scroll down. So let's go start all the way down into fitness. And I know, MG, you saw more than I did. So I'm gonna need your help on this one.
Yeah, I tried to. I did get most of fitness and sports purely because obviously me coaches Chloe, who had a very great day. We'll obviously get to it in a minute, but yeah, got to see a bit of it.
All right.
Where is
So
it?
where are we at? We're going to go straight to open, or which one was Chloe in? She was in 30 plus there.
Yeah, so she won 30 plus there. She won, yeah, that's 30 plus.
30 plus, yeah.
Yeah, so like she just condition wise was the clear standout. So she did my ANB show, and then her and me have dropped a kilo to MBA, and then dropped another kilo to ICN. So literally a kilo between all shows, and just got better and better.
Yeah.
Monster quads.
Yeah, she was great.
I don't know if you got to see the side by side of the season,
I
the
did.
last show to this show, which was I think it was a proper 18-month off season,
I did.
and like that's just the most you could do in that time. So just a fantastic effort, and honestly, one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. So
Yeah.
absolutely deserved. I think if you go to the Open, and we just look at Chloe was second in the Fitness Open, and equally she was second in the Sports Open, and it was the same girl who won both.
Hmm.
So I think condition, there's the winner there. Chloe second. I think if you look condition wise, Chloe probably wins on condition. But just in terms of roundness, specifically through the back and the delts, it's a little bit more density through the upper body. I think it could have been a case for either way, but yeah, that girl. She's got a good physique, good muscle bellies, nice round shoulders, nice and lean through the midsection. You know, you can see good definition through like the inner thigh and stuff as well. So
Yeah.
and there's probably people out there who are like, well, you know, confused as to why the fitness winner is also the sports winner. At the end of the day, if the judges just feel like that is the best physique on the day and it still ticks the category for both divisions, it's the best presentation of what is that division, then they'll still pick it. So that's just the way it goes sometimes, you know.
It's all based on who shows up, right? And
For
then
sure.
who is the closest to the criteria.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens that for fitness and sports, as we can cross over, that person ends up looking the best fit in both lineups, which can definitely happen. And I know it's confusing, or some people can find it confusing, but once they kind of understand that, it's, you know, and that kind of shows you too that the judges are literally looking at the lineup with fresh eyes every single time. They don't
Yeah.
go, oh, because she was the fitness overall winner, she does look the best in sports, but oh, we can't do that. We can't have them both, her win both. Well, they're looking at it with fresh eyes again. It's like, okay, this is a new lineup, new people in this lineup, who fits the category the best, and just so be it that she fit both categories the best out of the lineup.
Yeah. And I think judging, you know, most judges have a bit of a strategy is like when they walk out, just cut the heads off, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the thing with fitness and sports is you're then going across to completely different outfits. So, you know, it is a different look and you are able to assess it freshly because you're not looking at sparkles anymore. You're looking at runners, you're looking at, you know, black sports model outfits.
Yeah.
So, and you know, if the first place person was the best for that division, comes in with a different attire and still presents and ticks all the boxes,
Mm-hmm.
you can understand why the judges make that call. And it was really I think it was really a case of size versus condition
Yeah.
from first and second, right? So no condition for second and a little bit more size in the upper for first is really what it came down to, and potentially um, a little more detail through the through like the glute to ham tying.
I know the third place, Lindy, she won overall last year. It was either female classic or winters.
Mm-hmm.
She won overall. Geez, I can't remember if it was fitness or sports or maybe even both. But she was a great competitor. I think she had the best mass on the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she looks massive.
Yeah, you can see there. Um, all right, let me go to sports then. We'll see what the lineup was.
Probably going to be the same, I reckon. I wonder if there's any. Oh no, there'll be some differences. That's right, because so
So
that's so Chloe won, I think two of those or
she runs
three of
Beauty and
those.
Mum, didn't Chloe? Yeah.
Yeah,
And Mum's sports mum was a lineup of 8. That's a decent lineup.
yeah,
So here's the open. So pretty much first the
yeah. So
same
the only
top
difference
three.
is Montana jumped in that one. Otherwise, the top three are the same.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I can see how they did that, how that makes sense. Yeah. When you look at it with fresh eyes for sure. Because you got obviously she was the most balanced and balanced in upper and lower, balanced in her conditioning too. As we know with Chloe, great size and mass, but that's upper and lower symmetry.
yeah,
And then with Lindy here, knowing that she has a great amount of mass, but probably was it the conditioning that need a little bit more improvement to place a little bit higher there because we know that Chloe has great conditioning,
yeah,
especially in that upper. So
yeah,
obviously the winner being the best
yeah,
blend of all of it.
yeah. The best balance athlete.
Yeah. So kind of as to be expected there. All right, and then let's flick over to bikini. We'll go all the way to open. That was a big lineup too. Scroll to the top. Where are we?
They're Michael Trimboli everywhere.
All right, so uh, we had a lineup of eight, five, six, seven, eight, eight. So it's another big lineup. I think Bikini Open, Bikini First Timer, and Sports Mum were the biggest lineups of the day, eight in all of those.
Yeah.
Um, in this lineup, we had some really good competitors actually. So um, Montana, she did really, really well at NBA a couple of weeks ago. Amelia in third place. I think she won the Open in NBA and was pretty much the runner-up overall for bikini. So great there. And then we had Charlotte there in fourth, which is one of my competitors. Slight improvement in conditioning overall since the NBA show. She placed, I think she was thirds. There was thirds in that show. So that was really, really good for her to come fourth to a third that was the open class winner. So she did really, really well there. And then we had Air in fifth, and she did really well at NBA and also did really, really well at the ICN show in April. I believe she won most of her categories or came second in maybe one. So she did really, really well too. Overall, their winner was Christina, which is my client and also my partner. So
So many people wouldn't know that. There
yeah,
you go,
you know
guys.
what was funny is I didn't even realize this till the end of the day, is the top three there are all coached by their partner. So the top three winners there are
Well,
all coached.
that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's cool. It is really,
That's
really
pretty
cool.
cool, man. That's a nice
Yeah,
story.
it's really cool.
That's a nice
Um,
story.
so maybe MG, just so there's no kind of bias, or you know how I am. I'm a little bit funny with talking about my own athletes. Maybe you saw the lineup.
Oh, for sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, it was. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the Open. It was a very good battle. Um, yeah, the photos show it too. Like just Christina being the best balance of shape and definitely the best condition on the day. Really, really round out, tiny waist, nice glute detail, glute to hamstring tie-in. A really nice midsection without abs, separation, like into a six pack, but just that tiny waist and that X frame was. I heard some people in the crowd that I was sitting there was like, oh, that girl should do IFBB. Like just that really good X frame that we love for bikini. So just the best mixture of everything that the judges look for in terms of shape, not being too conditioned, plenty of muscle tissue, tiny waist. And then if you kind of go down the line, all very good physiques, all impressive physiques. I like Montana's physiques. I like Amelia's physique too. But just didn't match Keeks for condition and shape. Yeah, just the best glute to delt ratio. If you look at it from the front shot and you look at the outside of Christina's glute all the way across to the opposite delt, and then the symmetry from the outside of her left delt in that photo, straight line down to her glute, it's just so symmetrical. So that's what like I look for. If anyone's wondering, like, what are you looking for when you look at bikini? Well, if you look at Christina's front shot there, and you were to draw a line from the outside of her glute all the way up to her shoulder, right? See what I mean about how balanced that looks?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a beautiful straight point. And then from the back shot, she literally just looks like that, a straight across X. And if you can get that glute to hamstring tie-in, it just exaggerates that even more. So if you've got the X frame and you get glute to hamstring tie-in as well, that's just like the perfect look. And if you look at her oblique there, hard as a rock without being too six-packy, but super, super hard through the oblique. So yeah, just ticked all the boxes. But a really, really nice lineup, really, really nice lineup. And credit to Patricia and Tony. They made the day very, very entertaining and fun for the crowd as well. I want to say they did a great job with the mums divisions. They brought the kids up and they gave the kids proteins, which I thought was a really, really nice touch. Really, really nice touch. I actually spoke to Tony this morning. We had a great chat on the phone, and I just congratulated him. And equally, I've got my client Emily there who lost a lot of weight to get to stage over 30 kilos, and he made a special mention of her on the day on the microphone, which as a coach, I'm super appreciative of that. It just shows that you go there and you're made to feel welcome. So well done to them as well as all the competitors.
Yeah. It was a really, really good show, well run, and everyone had a lot of fun. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing this now.
Yeah. Oh, do you know the other thing I wanted to say as well?
Yeah.
Just to that photo, for bikini competitors, And this is just coming from a coach's point of view, and something that I really like to look for. When you're on stage and you're in that front shot, is there any way I can bring it back up?
Yeah, sure.
Is that too hard?
No, no.
So let's just use Christina as an example. And if you look at the arm, so the arm that's not on her midsection, see how she flexes the bicep, and you
Yep.
see how much that changes like the overall appearance of the arm with a flex bicep. So any competitors out there in that pose, I'm sure pros and coaches are saying the same thing. But if you can tense that bicep without having to squeeze your fist, which you can, it just adds to the overall look. So just bear that in mind when you're posing, that a flex bicep where you can see a little bit of detail through the inside of the arm that leads into where the delt starts is a really, really nice look.
It also helps that she's pretty peeled, and conditioning wise, if she was to reach to grab a glass from the top shelf, you'd probably still see that there. I obviously didn't get to see that, but when my wife was there, Jen, when she got home, she actually said she made a mention to say that MT's partner looked insane. So I think even just looking at those pictures, it's obviously you're not there in the flesh, but it looks pretty clear cut. She looks insane, very deserving.
Yeah, so we started prep. I can give you some background, might as well, hey, while we're here. We started prep in Jan. Overall, she lost 15 kg. So she
Wow.
holds it really, really well in the off season. But it was the heaviest she'd ever been in a long time. She lost
Did you say 15 kg?
15 kg, yeah, 15.
How far off that was she when we were up in Brisbane?
She was around that, yeah.
No way. Fuck.
Yeah.
She does hold it well then. Because I remember she was training with us and she did not look like she was 15 off stage weight.
No. But then it goes to show is, like, I was looking back at old photos for another reason of like past competitions like 2019, 2018, 2017. Every division has evolved and they're getting leaner. So Kiki was as lean as like a fitness competitor from years ago. Like she was lean. Like in the gym, she had striations through her shoulders. She was lean, really, really lean. Like even in some movements, you could see like the fibers in her quads when she walked. So I knew that's the kind of level that I wanted to bring for her, to be really, really competitive, but still have that bikini look and not look overly shredded. So I knew we had to lose a fair bit of weight. So she was definitely the leanest on the day, but it looked right for her. She didn't look overly small and like too far dieted down. And
but that helps that she's got good tissue there too.
Yeah, and she's got good mass underneath all that we lost. So yeah, it makes a really big difference, to be honest. To get fairly lean for bikini, but not so lean that you look like a string bean. So
yeah.
And so are you guys done now?
think so.
Well, there's only one more opportunity, so I think we know what the question's going to be. It's potentially international. Are we right? Potentially.
Yeah, we're having to think about it.
Well, because you got Amy going anyway, right?
I got Amy going.
So for you, it kind of would make sense if it happened because you'd be going for multiple purposes, not just one.
Correct. Yeah, and look, Kiki only done one show this whole season, so for her, she's fresh still. She's still fresh. Coming out of the show the last couple of days, she has not been hungry or food focused. She couldn't care less. She's gone back to her prepped meals. She just doesn't care.
Yeah. So the question is,
you know what I think, but bro, I think Kix is pro worthy, and they'll eat her up over there, man.
Yeah,
pretty girl, great shape, blonde, like
you know me. I find it really hard to not try to big note, especially anyone in my team. Like I really keep it low key. But I think she's there too, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'm not her coach, so I can big note her.
Yeah. I think.
But there's no that's not me being biased. That's giving you my professional opinion. That I think if she was my athlete, and she's feeling fresh, she ticks all those boxes. Never been to Korea, like let's fucking go to Korea.
Yes. Yeah. I want to bring up two things, and this will just help. Like a couple of stories about Kiki in the process, and this will help just educate other people too. Firstly, with the show, right, you can see that Kiki only did 3 divisions, right? She did first timer because she was eligible for that. She did 30 plus because that was her age, and she did open, right? Now, even though I knew she looked great, I didn't know who was going to be there, but I just didn't want to be greedy, right, with trying to hunt down more trophies and more trainer awards and stuff, because she could have went into rookies and she could have went into novice, and the people that won that, she beat them in the overall, right? So could have walked away with 5 wins, 5 trainer awards, all this kind of stuff, right? But as a coach and even as a competitor, sometimes you got to give people an opportunity and give them a good experience in the day, and also give the spectators in the audience and those family members a good experience in the day, because they don't want to see someone competing 5, 6, 7 divisions and just take absolutely everything out. It becomes boring, right? And doesn't give other people an opportunity. So I just tell people and tell coaches and tell competitors, just do the minimum that you need to get done. Even if you're overly confident, you think maybe you can take the whole thing out, just give other people other opportunity. That's the way how I like to treat it, right? Same with, like, could have put Amy in that show too, but what's the point? Nothing to prove. Like, so sometimes you got to give other people an opportunity to have a really, really good experience, a really good day too. So that was one thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, you know how we spoke about last potty about your environment, people around you, making sure they understand what you're going through and support you. Obviously, being her partner, I know exactly what she's going through, right? So little things like, I would never mention about eating out. I would never mention about when I did eat out with you boys, what it was like, what we ate, how delicious it was, none of those kind of stuff. I would never talk about, I can't wait till you're done because I want to do this. I'd never talk about that. Whenever we went to a family function or ate at someone's house, I always strategically put her at the end of the table and didn't put any food next to her. And then when I ate my meal, I kind of moved my plate away and kind of 8 bites away from her, but then turned back to her. Just like little things to not make her any food focused, and to put her in a way where she could be tempted in any way or feel like she's missing out. So there's just little things that, if you're someone's partner that's competing or someone's family member or friend, just be mindful around food and what things you mention and how you interact with that person around food, just to make their life a little bit easier, and just there's a little bit less resistance there. So there's a couple of things that I did because I knew that's what I would have done for myself when I'm in prep, right? Because it's difficult. She's never been through this before. She's never had to say no to things. She's never missed out on, like, family occasions and social situations and things like that. So trying to understand what a competitor goes through and their mindset, and any way to help them, just be really, really mindful of those things.
Yeah, I think last week after we got into that inner circle thing, you guys know I got a lot of messages, which is great, and it's also a bit sad too that so many people out there are struggling with the people around them just not being supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, people are like, can you guys just talk about it a little more this week? Because, you know, no one in my circle is like me. And, you know, I'm having to continually change who I am around them so that they don't get too insecure, or, you know, not celebrate my wins around them so that they don't feel bad, which sucks, right?
Yeah.
And Scotty, you made some really good points last week, which people said to me. I got a lot of messages that people like, I loved what Scotty said about, you know, when people come up to you and say, oh, you're looking skinny. I had 10 messages about that comment you made about, oh, what a strange thing to say to someone. And everyone's like, I'm going to use that now. It's like, what a great way of dealing with it without having to say exactly what you said last week. You're a fuckwit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, any pieces of advice we can give here, you know, this week and moving forward on managing that inner circle space is really going to help people, because, you know, the consensus I got from people was that they're finding it really, really hard they're happy. They want to celebrate their victories. They want to talk about a win they had, you know, not necessarily on stage, but a win they had with their week, or they lost some weight, or they nailed their food this week, or they had a mad training session and they got overloaded on 5 exercises, and they feel like they can't tell their friends.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
no, that's really tough.
do you guys think that is something really specific to the sport we're in, or do you think it's something that's happening across all sporting chapters?
I think it probably happens across everything, but I think with bodybuilding is because the nutrition side is super important, and it has to be very, very specific and measured and managed. That's a 24/7 thing. So I think in this sport, we might see a little bit more of that compared to maybe someone that's, I don't know, playing footy, where Yeah, they need to
Yeah.
look after their nutrition, but they don't really care about their composition per se, and they're probably not bringing their meal prep around all the time and missing out on social events all the time. So I think and obviously they're getting like competitors are getting to a point where they don't even have the energy to do things, and their patience is thin, right? So we're getting people to a point where just mentally and emotionally it's maybe not optimal, right? So it's a little bit different. Whereas other people in other sports are probably really well fed, right?
Yeah.
And have plenty of energy, where competitors don't. Yeah, it's not performance based, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's yeah, it is a little sad, but I don't know. Have you guys seen that? I don't know if it's a meme, but it's like Dana White, and he's like, man, this generation nowadays, there's like a small bunch of us that are just like fucking savages, and everyone else he's like they're pussies, and if you're one of the small savages, you can just fucking run over everyone else. And he's like, don't ever hold yourself back and your wins and for the sake of someone else. If they don't want to be happy for you, then they're probably not someone that you want in your circle, right? It's like your true friends should be really happy for what you achieve, even if it's got nothing to do with what they're doing and they don't see the benefit in it. It's like all of us have friends who are doing completely different stuff to us, who if I told them I did something great related to my sport, they'd be like, fucking, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Do they give a fuck? Probably not. But they're still going to support me. So I think that, you can maybe try and be patient with someone who doesn't understand what you're doing once, twice, three times. But if it gets to a point where they just refuse to give you any acknowledgement, any support, and they start to make you feel bad for your wins, then the harsh reality is that you need to make an assessment of whether that's someone that long term is worth being inside that inner circle of yours.
Yeah, and it's difficult because, and I'm going to read a little bit of a message that we got, or like a question that we got from a competitor that's kind of going through that at the moment. So they said today their grandmother and their dad said that their look is ugly, too skinny, unattractive, and were literally disgusted by the fact that she wanted to do another season after her show this Saturday. These comments are really, really hurtful.
Sure.
And they're affecting my confidence going into my next show. She has a show coming up this Saturday. So, like, that's really hard because that's their family
It's
members.
family. I know.
That's
Yeah.
just not someone you can just go like,
I
I
know. I
don't
know.
be your
You're
friend
right.
no more, right?
No,
So
I know. I know.
it's a little more difficult. I guess in a situation like that is you have to go through a process of trying to make them understand and giving them the benefit of the doubt and educating them. And then if it gets to a point where after you've tried what you need to do to help them understand what you're going through is sometimes you need to disconnect. So um, if you are still around them and they're making comments, just disconnect from those comments or maybe create a little bit of distance during this point in time while you're trying to go through something that's really, really tough, which is competing. But it's no reflection on you of what they're saying. I think you know that. You know you don't look disgusting and unattractive and skinny, right? I know this person is, they look absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
it's got nothing to do with, and in the end, it's the judges that you need to be worried about their opinion, not anyone else's about how you look, right? You know, if you have the confidence of your coach that you look amazing and you've competed this season and you got amazing results, I think they're the kind of opinions on how you look
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember something distinctly when I was like 18 and I was really first getting infatuated by bodybuilding. And I was training at Victory in Airport West, and there was a guy who I still know, his name's Tony, older guy, but he's been around bodybuilding forever. And I had like a million questions, like, shredded to the bone. And I'm like, man, like, how much further are you going to go? Like, how far are you going to take it? Like, I was just this young kid, just so curious. And he made a comment to me, and I'll never forget it. He's like, when my family and friends start to tell me I look disgusting, I know I'm getting close. Swear to God, bro. And that has never left my mind. So whenever that happens to me, or if you're someone out there that's currently happening to, think about that. If your family and friends are starting to say, oh, you don't look good, you're probably getting close to the dream physique because they're just so insecure that they'll never be able to achieve that. And they're just putting it onto you. So when your family and friends start to tell you that, you're probably in the sweet zone.
Yeah. That happened to me actually. Like
True?
my parents are super understanding. They're like, Michael, is this okay? What you're doing okay? Like, you look really skinny, like you
Yeah.
lost a lot of weight, you know, like those kind of comments. And then even them saying things to like other people I know, like, is Michael okay? Like, you know, I'm worried about him. He doesn't have a lot of energy and stuff. And when I hear that, I was like, yes, on the right track.
Yeah,
I'm
for
on the
sure.
right
But
track.
but your parents are coming from a different place. Like they're so
Of
supportive
course.
of everything you do, and these comments sound a little more like your parents are like, is he okay from an energy point of view? These comments are like, you look terrible. You
Yeah.
know, like people just don't think before they speak sometimes, but because you can be concerned, right? But it's also there's a way to voice your concern. Scotty, you made some comments on this last week that were good. Like, what do you think when it's specific to family, bro?
I think people always fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And so family members, it's easy for them if they don't understand it and perhaps they have their own demons with it. Maybe they're overweight or they don't eat a certain way. But again, if this person's not imposing that lifestyle on anyone else, then it's not really fair to do that. And unfortunately, we can't. The family we get is the family we get. We can't necessarily, change that. It is the way it is. But you kind of just have to let it be water off a duck's back. And I can actually kind of relate because my parents were never really supportive and still, I mean, they know I do it now, but they don't speak about it in a positive light. Like if there's a dinner, like I will get, oh, you're dieting, aren't you? So you won't eat that. And I'll just say, no, I'm good, thanks. Even though I'm like, did you have to phrase that comment like that? Probably not, but
Yeah,
I've just accepted that is just the way it is. And again, that if they were to give me feedback on anything to do with health and fitness, I wouldn't even remotely like it'd be literally like they could speak to me and I wouldn't actually be able to recite what they said because I would be turning the volume all the way down. And because it sounds sad, but that's literally kind of what you have to do. Equally, you'd see these people at a meal, oh, I haven't eaten all day today, so I'm gonna eat anything and everything. And it's like, well, that's probably the wrong approach to take, but it's just like sometimes people in that old school mentality, that's just the way that they're wired. And so, not that it makes it okay or that you're condoning it, but if someone is that, I guess,
set in their own ways.
ruthless to say something so hurtful to someone, then you've got two options. You can either just accept it, but for me, I voiced it and just said, why does it bother you? And so now they are more particular about how they would go about it. But for this person, I would just perhaps in a calmly manner, try and engage. Why is it bothering you so much that I'm doing this? I've got someone that's looking after me. I'm doing it the right way. This is who I am as a person, and this is what I'm really into, and I enjoy it. So if you guys love me and care about me, why can't you just support me? And if they still come back with negative comments and hurtful things, then you probably just unfortunately have to accept that you're never really going to see eye to eye on that. And you should just do you, because I don't think you should ever apologize for who you are. And you should never change for anyone. So it just may mean that you perhaps will place less weight on anything that they have to say pertaining to bodybuilding or health and fitness. But it is a little bit sad. But unfortunately, not everyone has that supportive inner circle or family like some people do.
All right, boys, we got a lot of questions.
I'm gonna have to
So
save some for next week. Or
yeah, I know. What I'm going to do is let me just like some rapid fire ones. Let's just like quickly just knock some over.
yeah.
So let's quickly knock some over. Post comp, macros or meal plan? What's better?
Meal
Just pick
plan.
one. Meal plan?
Yeah, it depends on the athlete, but I mean, if you think about leading up to the show, you'll go with meal plan, so you might just continue that into the recovery phase and then allow the macro freedom post reverse.
Yeah, I think it's independent of the client, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be structured. So whether that's a meal plan or macros, whatever it is, it needs to be set, structured meals, and making sure that you keep those habits in place as what you had in comp prep. So whether you go meal plan or macros, doesn't really matter. Just have structured meals. Make sure it's very similar to what you had in comp, just a little bit more volume. And yeah, add in a little bit more variety as you go too. Is there any difference between ICN Ballarat and ICN VIX. So Ballarat's just a regional show. No difference, same judging, same criteria. It's still an ICN show, just one's regional, one's not. So yeah, the regional show is probably not going to be as many competitors. That's the biggest difference. If you're a first-time competitor and you want to start small and not hit the big stage in your very, very first one, you might go Ballarat first. Or if you're not too fussed and you just like to go, if your first show is one of the bigger ones in the state, then you can go straight to VIX. Okay, this is a good one for you, MG. Can you explain what ANB looks for in fitness compared to other federations, ICN, NBA, etc.?
Yeah, so we're probably like the main difference. We equally want amazing condition. We're probably just looking for a little bit of a bigger girl than you potentially would see at an ICN fitness show. So a little bit more tissue, right? And equal, I think ICN rewards condition in fitness. But I think that if I had to point out the main difference between the two, we're probably just looking for a little bit more muscle.
Yep.
Yeah.
When is the best time to start with the posing coach?
Yesterday.
Yeah, as soon as you can. Yeah.
Yesterday. Like if I start with someone brand new, one of the first things that I'll get on is start posing straight away, whether you're competing in the next season, the season after that, or even, say season B next year.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people leave it too late. You can never start soon enough. And I'm a big fan of off-season posing with posing coaches too.
If you start super early, it's like even if you're doing season A next year, right? So it's like a year away. If you start now and do all your sessions, learn all the posing up until your comparisons to your stage walk and everything, if you learn it all now in the next 3 to 6 months, you then have 6 months to practice what you've learned, right? So you're just going to absolutely nail it. If you're learning new stuff all the way up until the weeks of your show, and by the end, just before your show, you're just learning how to do your walk or your sign-on, sign-off comparisons, you've got no time to practice that stuff. You just learnt it, and it's like a week or two before your show. So learn it all early. You've got plenty of time to practice, and it'll make a world of difference.
Learn it all when you've got a lot of energy.
Yes.
Not when you've got none.
Learn stuff when you've got no energy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Little binge in prep, about 300 calories. How detrimental is it? And how detrimental potentially, and how many? That doesn't make any sense.
Is it a big detrimental problem if I binge once for 300 calories? Let's just answer
that. Yeah. Let's just
You want to go, Scott? Or?
No, you go.
That one episode across the whole scheme of everything, probably not that detrimental at all. Where the issue is what was the underlying trigger, and making sure that you address it so that it doesn't happen again. Right? If you think about 300 calories, let's just say, what's that? 75 gram of carb, right? Let's just say you went over by 75 gram of carb. Is it going to ruin your whole prep? No. Is it going to ruin that whole week? Probably not. But 2 or 3 of those episodes, and all of a sudden it starts to accumulate, and now you've got a bigger issue, which is why are we binging? Yeah. So that's what you need to think about is what caused you to binge, and the best thing that you can do is be honest with your coach, have a conversation about it. If the coach doesn't know that happened, that you went over by 300 calories, and then you do your check-in that week and your coach makes a play, like drops food off or adds cardio in because he thinks that you're not eliciting the result that you're supposed to, but you're doing something that he doesn't know about, that's a big problem.
Yeah. So it's not about trying to counteract the binge, it's to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And to make sure that it's known.
Yeah, to make sure it's known. We had another question about the new ANB categories and judging criteria. Scotty, you want to talk about that, the men's ones?
Yeah, so we now have the men's physique, and they're the boys that are going to be wearing the board shorts. And so posing wise, it's going to be very similar to the other divisions. So we've got a front double bicep, side chest, side tricep, rear double, abs and thigh. And they're still half turns though. They're not quarter turns like some of the other feds have. And then the Euro fitness trunks are just like the normal men's fitness shorts that guys wear, except with ANB, we're giving our guys the flexibility to, pick and choose their own colors so they can have a bit of flair and just a bit more selection in what they want to wear. Perhaps it speaks about their personality. A lot of guys, like girls with their bikinis, take a lot of pride in their boardies or in their shorts. So there's that. And then in the men's fitness, half turns, and then the muscularity poses are a one arm bicep, abs and thigh,
Side chest, yeah.
and
Side chest, yeah.
side chest, yeah. So they just don't have those additional ones that the men's physique guys do, and they have the single arm rather than the front double and rear double. So more or less very similar to men's physique, but just smaller athletes. So maybe not quite as big, but again, still need the same level of conditioning. And we're pretty confident we're going to see a big spike in numbers this year as a result of that, because the men's physique division and the men's fitness divisions, they've really just
Blown up, yeah.
exploded. Yeah, like with Classic, they've really been a kind of like with the females bikinis, obviously the most popular division. With the guys, there's a lot more guys now that are dipping their toe in the water now that you don't just have to do bodybuilding, because bodybuilding rules out so many athletes and so many people's decision to engage in bodybuilding, because you've just got to be a monster, or you've got to have a certain muscular architecture or a physique type. Whereas now that there's multiple divisions, there's something for anyone and everyone.
Yeah,
that's true.
Then we've got the women's sports division.
Mm-hmm.
So sitting in between bikini and fitness. But as we know with ANB, we like a little bit more muscle. So that's going to carry over also into sports. A little bit more muscle than bikini. Doesn't need to be as much as fitness. And same with conditioning, sits in between. Can just be like nice oblique lines in the midsection. Can have a six-pack, not required. Whereas bikini, no six-pack at all. So that's how we're going to be running our sports division too. And we're super excited because we're organizing the outfits at the moment, and we're like going for a very specific cut so we can show off as much as a physique as possible. So that's super exciting. Another big call out for ANB that we kind of mentioned before, and Scotty mentioned, is half turns. So just like IFBB, we only do half turns. We don't do quarters. So, which is awesome, because sometimes quarter turn doesn't look the best on some people.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's definitely my weakest shot, and sometimes athletes use the same pose anyway, right? So
yeah.
So I love the half turn, especially as a guy, like as a physique guy. The half turn's freaking awesome. Front shot, back shot, like so good. So it's exciting, and the outfits that we've arranged, which we've been working to get spot on, look
I'm
awesome.
excited.
So this just for everyone's, the strap at the back's literally just going to be one strap, so you get to see all the back detail.
Back pieces, yeah.
And all going well, if everything works the way we hope, we should have a couple of sizes, which will be great.
And we wanted to show a lot of glute
Yeah.
in the sportswear too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Okay, next one. Binging hard post show and how to help. I find that I get a good few days and then cycle repeats again. Have performance-based goals in the gym currently, but finding this hard to shake. Reached out to my coach and he couldn't offer any help. Any ideas would be appreciated.
Increase your calories first and foremost. Well, you got to address, firstly, is this person, again, context, are they super shredded, or are they just being perhaps a little bit weak mentally? Because coming out of contest prep, dieting, all of that, we know it's hard. We know that when we sign up for it. And this is the thing, I've been saying this to people lately, complaining that you're hungry when you're dieting is like complaining that you got wet when you went for a swim. Like, do you know what I mean? So it just doesn't make any sense. We know what we're signing up for, but equally, if you do things right and you just trust the process and you can't buy time. So sometimes even you could be doing everything right, you're still feeling hungry. It's just going to take time, as well as obviously fat mass, to come back on. But if you have a binge, if I have someone that does do that, the first thing I'll do is increase their food, because it's better to give them an extra, say, you might give them an extra 500 calories additionally a day, which is 3,500 calories, net intake for the week, which is only a half a kilogram extra, in terms of adding more tissue to one's physique, versus if you don't, and they're binging and then they're like, no, I'm going to eat less tomorrow so I can balance it out throughout the week. It's the wrong approach. And everyone does it. And the first thing they say is, do you want me to do cardio, or should I pull back calories tomorrow? No, instead, we're going to push in a little bit more. And then if it happens again, we're going to push in a little bit more again. And we'll keep repeating that cycle until we can attenuate the behavior. And there will come a point where typically if it happens twice within that period of time, 1,000 calories is not much that won't fix. If you're a bikini girl and you've been eating 1,800, you got a 2,800, fuck me, that's a big difference. If you're a guy and you're on 3,000, you got a 4,000, and you put in place some vegetable requirements and quotas, like you need to consume at least 500 grams of veg a day.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you're getting 200 grams of fruit, things that are going to have more fiber in it that are going to help satiate you. 9.5 times out of 10, that will attenuate the problem. So long as you don't then try and follow it up with cardio. But there also is a responsibility that you have to be mature enough to understand that this is normal to feel hungry and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
You were hungry when you were 4 weeks out, but you kept going because you had a target you were aiming for. It shouldn't be any different. If you could, like we've spoken about, those first 4 weeks, if you get it right, then it's smooth sailing from there. But if you don't, then you're going to run into some strife. And if you've reached out to your coach and they haven't been able to give you any help, that's probably giving you another message as well. Get rid of them and find someone who can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it, Scotty. I think, and a lot of things that we said last week about your environment, physical environment, your pantry, your fridge, and then your emotional and mental environment that's around you, who's there to support you is super, super important too. And there's understanding it's a process, right? As we kind of said last week, this is a process. You're going to go through this. There's going to be periods of time where you're hungry, then less hungry, then not hungry, then super full because you're eating too much in the off season and you're complaining about that. So it's definitely a process. And then, as you said too, make sure you're eating the right foods so that you kind of mitigate hunger. All the things you did in prep, a lot of volume, vegetables, fiber, fruit, making sure you're staying hydrated, not overly palatable and sweet foods, like all that kind of stuff is going to help with that. Okay, let's go to this one. Totally change the topic. Not a question, but I heard there was a bit of bad sportsmanship at the ICN comp on the weekend. Not happy to hear this. I think it should be addressed. There is no reason to be rude or arrogant. Competitors have all embarked on the same journey. Be kind, ladies. No bitchiness. So
I've got no idea what that's about, man.
I don't know what it's about. I didn't see any of it. But this person heard this. So I don't know if they were there.
Oh, is it going to explain to us what happened?
No, they said they heard. Said, I heard there was.
Yeah, so, I didn't hear anything. I was there all day.
So unless someone said to them, unless they actually witnessed it, fair enough. But this could be hearsay.
Yeah.
The thing people need to understand is at a comp, they're nervous, right? There's insecurity there. They see other people they're going to be competing against and they have a little bit of a worried look on their face, right? So don't take that as if they're staying quiet and to themselves or maybe looking at you then looking away. It's not bitchiness. They're maybe just worried and nervous and scared, right? Because they're about to get on stage. So, and I completely understand that. So don't take that from a negative aspect. Some people don't know how to act in an environment like that. It's the first time maybe they've competed, or they're an overly anxious and nervous person. They're about to go on stage half naked, right, and get judged. So don't take that maybe the way they're acting to heart, to be honest. Maybe they say things they shouldn't say sometimes, a bit of, comments here and there. Just be really, really mindful of what's going on in their head, right? And then, sometimes we see some behavior that we don't agree with, but that's okay. Just distance yourself from that person and just don't play into it. And also don't let it affect you either, because again, they're saying it maybe from an area of insecurity or having anxiety or being worried. So yeah, but I didn't see any of that on the weekend, and we were there backstage pretty much nonstop.
Yeah. And if you're an athlete and you're disappointed with the result or you thought you'd do better, it's okay to be disappointed, but certainly keep it to yourself. Have a conversation with your coach after. And if you're a coach as well, don't feed into that negativity by blaming the judges or anything like that. The result's the result. It's definitely not going to help the sport. And I think a lot of times, potentially some coaches find it really hard to explain to their clients why they placed where they placed, or they don't want to, say the truth of that girl was just a bit better. She had a bit more muscle. That's what the judges like. It's okay. Not everyone has to win. I always say, when we catch up for ANB, it's like we're in the sport where unless everyone wins, that's the only way everyone would be happy. And it's just not possible. But that's the same in every sport. There's always got to be winners and losers. So I think just bear in mind how you carry yourself and how that looks. from a competitor's point of view, you're allowed to be disappointed, but I think don't make a scene about it. And from a coach's point of view, don't feed into the decision was wrong.
Yeah. And if you're a coach and your competitor is showing poor sportsmanship, just make sure that you check them too, right?
Yeah.
Or remove them from the situation, or put them in a different environment where they're not anxious or scared or there's a trigger for the reason why they're acting the way they're acting.
Yeah. And I'm like, to be a bit more specific, let's say you came off stage, you were disappointed, you thought you'd do better, and you were a little upset. That's okay. You went to a corner, maybe you had a tear or two, but you didn't make you didn't make it about anyone else. It was just your disappointment.
Yep.
I'm not talking about that. You're allowed to feel a little bit disappointed, 100%. But I'm saying if you're coming off stage and saying that's bullshit, that's rigged, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That is absolutely stupid. I've been to a million shows and I've never ever seen a case of that personally where like that shit has actually happened.
Oh, we've seen that, bro. Come on.
No, I'm talking about the decision. I'm talking about the decision.
But
I've seen that a million times. But I'm saying like what they're saying is never true.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I've seen plenty of stories.
Yeah, I think we know who we're talking about too. Okay, another one. This is a little bit about coaching too. What do you do if your current PT is not updating your program after 12 weeks, but is not communicating why? I've asked very kindly if and when she thought I might be ready for a new one. I've been promised one, but haven't received it yet. I'm currently in prep, and I'm worried I'm not being supported very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so 12 weeks, no program, and no communication why they haven't got a new program. Been promised a new one, hasn't been delivered. Should they be worried?
Yeah, I think.
What should we expect?
Well, I think the 12-week thing's necessarily not the problem. If your coach is like, hey, we're running this block, it was going to be 8, we're running it 9, 10, 11, your numbers are fucking awesome, you're overloading, you're recovering, I'm not changing anything because you're just dominating in the gym, why would I change anything? But that needs to be communicated, right?
Yes. Yep.
So the 12-week part's not necessarily the problem. The problem is the one, lack of communication. And if you're having to ask multiple times without an answer, equally, that's probably an issue, a question for concern. But I would probably just have a conversation with that coach and say, here are my concerns. I thought you were going to update it. Can you tell me why it hasn't been updated? If there's no good reasoning, then what did you say before, Scott? There's probably another message in there. They're probably telling you something.
What did you use the other week, Scotty? If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always have good analogies. You always have.
So yeah, and being in prep, I understand you're probably feeling stressed about this, and you're wondering, am I going to get an answer? I think the first thing you need to do is have a conversation with the coach and say, why is this happening? If they've got a really good reason as to why it's still running and it makes sense to you, fine. But equally, that should have probably already been communicated. Like I've certainly got athletes that I run programs a lot longer. Like Scotty, even with mine at the moment, I'm like, can we keep it? Because like I'm into the next block, but I'm tearing the numbers up. Don't change it. You're like, yep, let's just leave it. So like, there's reasoning for programs to go longer, but as an athlete, you should be told that. You shouldn't be guessing.
Yeah.
And you probably want to address moving forward if this is your coach, is it a coach or a personal trainer?
It says PT, but they're doing their prep, so it's a coach.
Okay, so if you've got someone who's managing your preparation, you probably need to have a conversation around expectations.
Yeah.
In terms of what you expect as the client, and if they're not meeting those expectations, then again, maybe you need to engage elsewhere, because it's one of those things where you do get to a point where you can be quite fragile and perhaps you are not able to be objective on certain measures. And that's why you've got someone in your corner to be. But if you can't get them, on the phone or on an email and they won't communicate with you, then what are you paying them for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the no communication is the big alarm bell.
Is an issue. You should be in weekly communication. Yeah.
We had another message, another question, which we're just answering, but I just want to tell this person we're answering with same advice. Is they talk about how they're not getting responses from direct messages, but the coach is in group messages and is responding. The question goes a little bit more than that, a little bit more detail, but that's basically the premise. So same thing, right? You got to reach out to your coach and make sure they can communicate with you. Otherwise, look elsewhere.
And also like it depends on like how quick are you expecting a response? Because equally, coaches may have a lot on. But if it's staying unread for multiple days, but they're responding in other platforms, then that's probably a concern. Like I think we've all not been able to get to a message for a day.
Yeah.
I
can see how it's frustrating when a client is not getting responses to messages, but their coach is like posting 1,000 times on Instagram stories, right? And group chats and all this kind of stuff, but they're not responding to your direct messages. That would be very frustrating. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be very, very frustrating. Okay, Scotty, this might be a good one for you because I reckon I've asked you this question in the past. How much is too much carbs for a female competitor? Any recommendations on the best timing for them? Thanks, guys. Now, they're not being specific on like for what, off-season, comp prep, whatever. Let's take it for peak week, right? Let's be really specific, right? Let's go peak week. How many carbs for a female competitor? How would you go about it, Scotty?
Again, context, everyone's so uniquely different in terms of what they can tolerate, but I guess people that are trying to yield like a super compensation effect, if they're like pushing in 800 grams in a day, and some girls, I've seen stuff on social media, girls in comps we just had that are talking about like having 1,000 grams of carbs over like 2 days and things like that. It doesn't make any sense logistically to do that. Like if we're talking about some general recommendations, like if we work off around about the most that say most people will be able to tolerate per hour, maybe like 90 to 100 grams. And even then we're talking about a mixed blend of glucose and fructose because obviously they have different transporters in terms of how they're absorbed. But usually I think you need to go off data that you have and the response that you get. So we're talking about peak week and someone's been typically their low days have been at like 150 carb. And then on a refeed, you might give them 250. I think if you think you're going to give them 400 and 500, probably not the way to go about it. And it's more likely to give you some gastrointestinal duress and some digestive issues versus rather than trying to do it all in a big hit, I prefer to just gradually linearly load and also to break up. So for females, I usually won't really exceed, in a meal, probably more than 60 grams if I'm doing that so that I can optimize that absorption rate. And again, I'll probably mix that blend like maybe 40 and 20 or something. But guys will do the same thing. Like MT, you remember with your show, like we spoke about spacing them out and allocating X amount of carbohydrate. I'd rather have regular smaller meals. So if it's 80 to 90 gram feedings, because we know that we're working within those general recommendations and those confines of that threshold, so that we know that we can onboard it and we can partition it. Because otherwise, it just sits in your stomach, and it's not able to make its way, into digestion, and you can't absorb it. So I think people just get very excited about the idea of just crazy amounts of carbohydrate, but it's important to remember what's the purpose of consuming it.
Yep.
And also, in the past, what do you like going off your feedback? So if you push in 300 grams of carbohydrate, like if I use myself, if I'm coming out of being in a suck down phase, I could push in 500 grams of carb and there's no response at all. So it might normally be like 700 and then multiple days at that, but it's not like 200 gram of carbohydrate feedings. They're broken up into smaller meals so that you can optimize digestion and absorption. So I think if you work off that for girls, typically go around about 60 grams of carb. If you're going to push that in per hour, we've spoken about how a little bit of protein can help with absorption with that, as can caffeine. But again, it really is individual specific. But I definitely wouldn't want to see females having 100 grams of carbohydrate servings, 5-6 meals a day. It's just silly. There's no point doing that. Instead, feed it a little bit less and do it over a larger amount of time so that you can just be a bit more conservative.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers it.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think people get caught up in the excitement of the the peak week high carb days, and then it's like a competition on social media of who can pump in the most carbs leading into their show, and they look ridiculous. So it's, the purpose of what we're trying to do is to optimize your look, not to see how much we can pump into you, right? So don't get caught up in the
I think
fluff.
sometimes you got to just be realistic too. Like if you think about most adults, let's say females, anywhere from 70 to maybe 80 or 90 grams of liver glycogen. There's probably maybe 300 to 350 unless they're big. Males, maybe 100 grams of liver glycogen, and then 500 to 600 max, talking about bigger guys. And then you've got a little bit of obviously carbohydrate floating around in circulation, like 5 grams. So there's not a whole lot there. And when you're in peak week, you're typically not overly active. So we know that carbohydrate's not going to really be a substrate we're going to be utilizing. If I'm just sitting here right now, like I'm not liberating carbohydrate to fuel my sitting down demands. So it doesn't really make sense. That carb's not going anywhere. So I think unless you're just this mammoth monster, and it's different if you're training, and obviously you may, burn through 200 grams of carbohydrate, 300 grams in a session, and that may deplete muscle glycogen stores. But towards the back end of the week, training's not really that hard. We're not overly active. So I think most of the time you probably don't need as much as what people probably think.
Do you know, Scotty, is there like a calculation or a value of how much glycogen someone burns in a regular training session?
You'd have to work it out. So typically anything in terms of working at a percentage of VO2 max over, say, 65%, carbohydrate is going to be the majority substrate that's utilized. Anything below that, it's more or less going to be lipid. There's still going to be some carbohydrate oxidation, but majority of it's going to be lipid. So it would depend. You probably could work it out if you were to wear a heart rate monitor. Firstly, if you worked out, you do a VO2 max test, work out what that is, and then you would just track your heart rate zones throughout a session, and then work out the amount of time that you spent within that period of time, and then you would be able to probably reverse engineer it. So you work out, okay, it was X amount. That's how many calories that I expended. Of that, this is how much was probably coming from carbohydrate. And then that's sort of probably how you would do it.
Yeah. It'd be interesting if there's like a rough range or a rough number for someone at X size, like, like a chart, like a...
It would really depend on, because again, what gets my heart rate to say above 65 versus what gets yours versus MG's, everyone's going to be uniquely different.
Different, yeah.
I think about how much carb you burned looking for that spatula when your heart rate was just through the roof.
My heart rate was through the roof. I thought I lost it.
See?
Yeah, so you would have had a massive release of just adrenaline. You're in that fight or flight response. Like, is it gone? Have I lost it?
I burnt so many carbs. That's why I need to have my Pop-Tarts in the morning. So
I was gonna hijack it, and then on this week's episode use it as the thumbnail.
Could you imagine?
That's what I was
Can
gonna.
you imagine if you just pulled it up, MT been looking for this?
But I just thought it was too harsh, man. I just didn't want to ruin his week.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even know what to do. I would have had to eat my eggs out of my fry pan because I couldn't flip. Yeah. All right, boys. Let's leave it there. We've got through a lot of questions. There's a couple more to do with education for coaches, but maybe we'll tackle that in another podcast because there was about 2 or 3 about that, so we can tackle that in another poddy. For sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Sounds good.
All right, boys.
Legends. Thanks, boys. Great chat as always.
Always.
See you. Talk to you both in a few days.
We'll catch up very, very soon.
Definitely.
Sounds good.
Legends.
Thanks,
Thanks, boys.